The first thing I noticed was the second wine glass drying in the sink, and we don't drink wine. It wasn't even hidden, still wet, still red stains clinging to the rim like lipstick. I stood there, staring at it, while she laughed upstairs, loud and careless, like nothing in the world could touch her. I should have known then. I should have known a long time before. The late nights, the weekend conferences, the way she started wearing perfume to meetings, but came back without a single file or email to show for it. Little pieces I ignored because the alternative was unthinkable. Love makes you stupid. Routine makes you blind. But once you start seeing the cracks, you can't look away. They spread, they crawl, they rip through everything you thought was solid. I wiped the glass clean with a rag and stuffed it into the trash. When she came downstairs, hair messy, cheeks flushed, I asked her who came over. She froze for a half a second, just long enough if you were paying attention, then smiled. Nobody, she said, breezy like a teenager sneaking in past curfew. Just me and Netflix. I looked at the trash can behind me, then back at her fake little grin. Right, I said, Netflix. She kissed my cheek and went about her night like nothing happened. But something had happened, something she couldn't wash off her skin. The next morning, I started checking her phone. Nothing obvious. She was smarter than that. No weird text threads, no suspicious photos. But her calendar told the real story. Appointments she never mentioned. Lunches with names I didn't recognize. Blocked off weekends that lined up with the nights she worked late. I didn't ask. I didn't accuse. I let her keep lying. Because if you want to catch a rat, you don't chase it, you lay the trap and wait. A week later, she said she was going to a friend's art exhibit across town. I kissed her goodbye, told her to have fun. Then I waited 20 minutes, grabbed my jacket, and followed. I didn't even have to rush. She wasn't hiding. Not really. She pulled up to a condo complex way outside the city. Not the gallery district. Not even close. I parked 2 spaces down, and watched her walk to a ground floor unit like she'd done it 100 times. The door opened before she even knocked. He was older. I could see that much even in the dark. Older than me. Grayer, heavier around the middle, but confident, the kind of confidence that comes when you don't have anything left to prove. He kissed her. Not the way a man kisses a mistress. The way a man kisses something he owns. And she kissed him back, melting against him like she forgot what home was supposed to feel like. I sat there gripping the steering wheel so hard the plastic creaked. I didn't rush the door. I didn't kick it down. I needed more. Because when you confront a liar, you need your evidence bulletproof. The next few days were mechanical. I planted a tracker in her car. I hacked into the condo building's public security cameras. I started documenting everything. Receipts. Timestamps. Video clips. I had a file the size of a novel by the end of the week. Still, I didn't confront her. I let it build. I let it rot. The night I chose wasn't special. No anniversaries. No birthdays. Just a Tuesday, the kind of day betrayal feels heaviest. She left the house dressed too nice for an art exhibit nobody had heard of. I waited 20 minutes again. Drove slow. Parked further this time. I walked up to the unit silent, calm, a man past rage, past heartbreak. The door wasn't even fully closed. I pushed it open with 2 fingers. And there they were. Not kissing. Not tangled up naked. Just sitting there, drinking wine, laughing like an old married couple. Her hand was resting on his thigh like it belonged there. He leaned in close, whispered something against her ear that made her giggle. I stood there watching them for a full 30 seconds before they noticed. She was the first to turn. Her face drained of color so fast I almost heard the blood rush out of her. He stood up, slow, cautious, like a man who's been caught climbing through a window. I didn't shout. I didn't swing. I just closed the door quietly behind me and said, "Don't stop on my account." She tried to speak first. Her mouth opened, stammering, babbling half-sentences like a child caught stealing cookies. I didn't give her the chance. I moved past her like she wasn't even there and looked straight at him, this older, sagging bastard who still thought maybe he could bullshit his way out of it. "You must be Robert," I said. His eyebrows twitched. That small, pathetic tell people have when they realize the walls are closing in. He cleared his throat. This isn't what it looks like. Of course he said it. They always say it. Even when it's exactly what it looks like. I let the silence choke the room. Let them stew in it, shifting in their seats, glancing at each other for backup that wasn't coming. She found her voice next. Thin. Trembling. Please, just let me explain. Explain? I said, almost laughing. Explain what? The wine glasses? The weekends? The part where you stopped loving me 3 years ago and just forgot to mention it? Her face twisted, pain, guilt, anger all warring on the surface. But deep underneath it all, I saw something else. Defiance. She wasn't sorry. She was sorry she got caught. You haven't been present, she snapped, sudden and sharp. You've been distant, cold. What was I supposed to do? I tilted my head. Communicate? Divorce me? Anything besides screwing Grandpa here behind my back? Robert flinched at that one. Good. Let the old man feel it too. She moved closer, hand outstretched, still trying to salvage something from the wreckage. I didn't mean for this to happen, she whispered. But it did, I said. Over and over again. Her hand hovered in the air for a second longer, then dropped. Defeated. Good. I wanted her to see it, the burning, final moment when the last ounce of respect drained out of me. I turned to Robert. You have a wife, don't you? I asked. He blinked. Nodded once, shame staining his face like bruises. I'm sure she'll be interested in these, I said, pulling a slim black folder from my jacket. Inside, printed photos. Screenshots. Receipts. A greatest hits collection of their affair. I tossed it onto the coffee table between them like a live grenade. Make sure she gets them, I said. Robert opened the folder, saw the first photo, them outside a motel, and sucked in a sharp breath. Good. Let the old bastard choke on it. I turned back to her, to the woman I once loved so stupidly, so fully, I would have taken a bullet for her without asking why. You made your choice, I said, voice low and even. Now live with it. She opened her mouth again, maybe to beg, maybe to curse, but I was already walking out the door. Leaving her standing there. Leaving the stink of betrayal behind. When I got back to the car, I sat behind the wheel, gripping it tight enough to make my fingers ache. Not because I wanted to cry. Not because I wanted to scream. Because I didn't feel anything at all. The anger, the sadness, the disbelief, they were already burned out. All that was left was cold, clean clarity. She thought she'd blindsided me. She thought I'd fall apart. She didn't understand that you can't destroy a man who's already done burying hope. You can only free him. And now? Now she was about to find out what real consequences felt like. I didn't go home that night. There wasn't a home left to go to. I checked into a cheap motel on the edge of town, a place where the neon lights flickered and the walls smelled like bleach and regret. The clerk barely looked at me. Took my cash. Handed over a key without asking questions. Good. I didn't want to explain why a man who owned a 4-bedroom house and 2 SUVs was suddenly renting a room with a broken heater and stains on the carpet. I spent the night sitting on the bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the shape of my life collapse around me. The worst part wasn't losing her. The worst part was realizing how little she thought I mattered. Like tossing out a pair of old shoes. Like throwing away something that had simply stopped being useful. By morning, the plan was solid in my head. Revenge wasn't going to be loud. It wasn't going to be messy. It was going to be slow, deliberate, and absolute. First move, the accounts. I froze the joint savings that afternoon, watched the teller's polite smile flicker when she saw the legal paperwork I'd brought. Power of attorney, divorce filing, pre-signed affidavits. All the little bureaucratic knives I had spent the last 6 months quietly sharpening, just in case. She wouldn't be buying any more wine with my money. Second move, the house. I'd been paying the mortgage solo for years, while her consulting gigs and part-time contracts ate up all her time. Funny how busy she stayed while never bringing home a dime. Ownership was simple. The house was in my name before we married. All she had was occupancy. Not anymore. A locksmith changed the locks by noon. Her clothes? Her jewelry? Her precious shoes lined up like soldiers? Boxed up. Stored in a pod facility under my name. I left a note on the door. Contact my lawyer. Nothing more. Nothing she could twist or sob her way through. I heard from mutual friends within hours. The outrage. The confusion. The crocodile tears. She says it was a mistake. She says she was lonely. She says you changed. Of course I changed. You stop kissing the hand that bites you. You start building fists. When I didn't respond, the friends started dropping off too. Some quietly, some with grand speeches about grace and forgiveness. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. If they needed a villain, I let them have one. Better that than pretending another second that any of them had really been on my side to begin with. The third move came 3 days later. I mailed the evidence, not just to Robert's wife, but to his business associates, to his golf buddies, to the country club he bragged about every Sunday. Every glossy, pristine piece of his self-image shredded into confetti. The man liked to preach about morals over bourbon and steak. Let's see how he liked wearing his real sins around his neck for everyone to see. As for her, I let her twist. I didn't block her number. I didn't need to. The messages kept coming, like little bloodstains leaking through a white shirt. Please, just talk to me. We can fix this. It didn't mean anything. I love you. Please don't leave me like this. I read them once. Cold. Clinical. Then deleted them without a second thought. Every time she hit send, she wasn't reaching out to me. She was clawing at a version of me she killed the second she unbuttoned her jeans for someone else. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry for what it cost her. There's a difference. A month passed. 2. I moved into a better place. A high-rise apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows and nobody else's fingerprints on the walls. I rebuilt my life from the ground up, brick by brick, scar by scar. The divorce finalized without a fight. She signed the papers like a prisoner surrendering to a sentence she never thought she'd have to serve. No alimony. No settlement. Nothing. Her parents called once, her mother weeping, her father spitting venom. I hung up without a word. She made her choice. She made her bed. Now she could rot in it. I heard Robert's wife cleaned him out too. Took the house, the cars, the retirement accounts. Good. Let him feel what it's like to be left empty and gutted. Let him wear the weight of his mistakes around his neck like a noose. She tried to find me once. Showed up outside my building in a ratty old hoodie, hair tied back, mascara streaked down her face. I watched her from behind the glass doors, standing there in the rain, clutching some sad little bouquet of flowers she probably bought with the last $20 in her account. She looked small. Pathetic. Unrecognizable. The woman I loved had already been dead for a long time. This was just a corpse, twitching on instinct. I didn't go out. I didn't wave. I turned and walked back to the elevator, leaving her to stand there in the cold until she finally gave up and disappeared into the night. And as the doors closed around me, I felt something sharp and clean settle deep in my chest. Not joy. Not pride. Just freedom. The kind you only taste when you've crawled through hell and clawed your way back out. Alone. Unbroken. Alive. 3 days after she showed up outside my apartment, she made her last mistake. She didn't call. She didn't text. She knew better by then. Instead, she tried to ambush me where I couldn't ignore her, at my office. She came dressed like the woman she used to pretend to be, neat little dress, heels clicking nervously against the tile, hair curled like she still thought she could play the part. My receptionist paged me with a voice that said, "Please deal with this." I didn't invite her in. I walked out to the lobby, looked her dead in the eye, and said, "You have 5 minutes. Start talking." She wilted right there. Shoulders slumped. eyes darting around, desperate for sympathy that wasn't coming. "I miss you," she said, voice cracking. "I made a mistake. Please, please just listen." Mistake. Like spilling coffee. Like missing a turn on the highway. Not like fucking another man and lying about it for months. I stayed silent. She pressed on. "I ended it with him. It didn't mean anything. I was confused. Lonely. Always lonely. Always someone else's fault. Always someone else filling the hole she never tried to patch herself." "Please," she said again, reaching for me like a drowning woman grabbing at a hand already withdrawing. I let her hand hang there in the dead air. I waited. When it was clear I wasn't going to catch her, she dropped it. Good. Let her feel what it's like to fall without a safety net. "You done?" I asked. She nodded, biting her lip, trying to summon tears that might have worked once. "Not now." I smiled. Not because I forgave her, but because it was time. "Good," I said. "Because now it's my turn." I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen, opened the app one had been waiting to use for weeks. The projector in the lobby, the one we use for presentations and morning briefings, blinked to life. Right there, in front of her, my staff, my clients, the entire building. The video started rolling. There she was. Laughing, sipping wine, leaning into a man old enough to be her father. Then the kiss. The long, slow, filthy kiss. Her hands buried in his hair. His hands disappearing under her dress. Every second time-stamped. Every frame a knife in the gut of whatever dignity she thought she had left. She gasped, loud, sharp, a wounded animal noise. Tried to lunge for my phone. Tried to scream something. Maybe my name, maybe just noise, but I was already stepping back. The room filled with whispers. Stares. The kind of judgment you don't wash off, no matter how much you cry or scream or beg. I tapped the screen again. The video ended. Silence. Sharp. Clean. "You want to tell them who he is?" I asked, loud enough for every corner of the lobby to hear. She shook her head violently, mascara streaking down her face. "No," I said. "Okay. I'll do it." I turned to the room. "Robert Harrison," I said. 54. Married. Father of 3. 1 grandchild. Gasps. Someone swore under their breath. I looked back at her. "You didn't just wreck a marriage," I said. "You wrecked 2 families." She dropped to her knees, hands clutched at her face, sobbing in thick, ugly gulps. I let her. I didn't offer her a hand. I didn't offer her a shred of pity. Security came a minute later, hesitating, because what do you do with a woman who's already destroyed herself? "Escort her out," I said simply. They obeyed. 2 guards each grabbed an elbow and lifted her like dead weight, dragging her sobbing, pleading, broken form out into the street. The glass doors shut behind her. And just like that, she was gone. The rumors would spread by noon. The emails would fly. The photos would leak. Robert's life was already collapsing. I had made sure his wife had the evidence first. She'd thrown him out that morning. My ex would find every bridge burned. Every whisper carrying her name. No job. No friends. No sympathy. Just the ashes of everything she thought she could cheat and lie her way through. And me? I walked back to my office, closed the door, sat down, and for the first time in 2 years I exhaled without pain clawing at my chest. It was over. The cancer was cut out. The rot was burned away. And whatever came next, it would be mine. Built from clean, broken earth. No apologies. No second chances. Just a man who learned the hardest lesson there is. When they show you who they are, believe them the first time. And then walk away before they take the rest of you with them. I didn't leave the office right after they dragged her out. I sat back at my desk, cleaned out a few emails, took a slow sip of black coffee while the entire building buzzed like a kicked hornet's nest. The whispers weren't whispers anymore. Her name poured from mouths like poison, mixed with laughter, with disgust, with the kind of judgment you don't shake off even after you change your name and move 3 states away. It wasn't enough. Not yet. I still had the last knife to twist. I waited until the clock hit noon, lunch hour, when the sidewalks outside my building filled with workers and clients and half the city's downtown crowd. Then I stood up, adjusted my tie in the mirror, and walked outside. I knew where she'd gone. I knew she was still out there, just around the corner, sitting on the curb, head in her hands, trying to figure out how the world slipped out from under her. I found her exactly where I expected, slumped against the concrete like a kicked dog, mascara smeared, hair tangled, jacket pulled tight against her like armor that wasn't going to save her. She looked up when she heard my footsteps. Her face lit up for a second, some tiny, pathetic spark of hope flashing behind her swollen eyes. It died fast when she saw mine. I didn't stop walking. I didn't kneel beside her like some savior. I walked right past her to the middle of the sidewalk, where the biggest crowd had started to gather, clients, colleagues, strangers. Then I turned around to face her. Loud enough for everyone to hear, sharp enough to cut through the noonday noise, I said, "Hey everyone, you recognize her?" Heads turned. Conversation stopped. Phones tilted upward. "That's my ex-wife," I said, pointing at her like she was a stain. "She spent the last 6 months cheating with a married man old enough to be her father. Smiling in my face. Spending my money. Pretending to love me while sneaking around like a $2 whore." A few gasps. A few muttered curses. Someone, I didn't see who, started recording. Good. Let it go viral. Let it crawl across the internet like a cockroach under glass. She covered her mouth with her hand, eyes wide, breathing ragged like she was about to pass out. But I wasn't done. Not by a goddamn mile. I pulled a small stack of papers from my inside jacket pocket, printed screenshots, photos, receipts, all the evidence she thought she'd buried under fake smiles and late-night showers. I tossed them into the air like confetti. They floated down around her, paper snow stained with her sins. People bent down, picked them up, mouths curling in disgust, in laughter. She scrambled on her hands and knees, trying to scoop them up, trying to hide them, but there were too many. Way too many. The sidewalk was littered with proof. The world was littered with her. I walked closer, leaned down just enough for only her to hear. "You don't get to disappear," I said, voice low and final. "You get to live exactly what you earned." She shook her head, tears streaming, lips trembling. "You loved me," she gasped out, desperate, clinging to some ghost of the past. "I loved the woman you pretended to be," I said. "The real you? I wouldn't piss on you if you were on fire." Her whole body sagged, crumbling inward like something broken beyond fixing. The crowd was buzzing now, whispers slicing through the cold air like knives. I stepped back. Gave her one last look. Not hate. Not pity. Nothing at all. Then I turned and walked away. No backward glance. No hesitation. Just the sound of her sobbing against the dirty sidewalk behind me, drowned out by the rising hum of gossip and judgment, and phones snapping pictures she would never escape. Each step I took felt lighter. Cleaner. Every block I put between us scrubbed more of her stink off my skin. By the time I hit the corner, I couldn't even hear her anymore. By the time I reached my car, I didn't feel her claws in my chest. I got in, started the engine, rolled down the window, and let the cold wind slap the last of her ghost off me. Freedom isn't a grand gesture. It's not fireworks or choirs singing. It's the simple, brutal silence of knowing the person who betrayed you is broken, publicly, personally, irreparably, and that you're the one who broke them. Clean. Final. And now, while she drowns in the ruin she built with her own filthy hands, while she scours job boards and back alley apartments for scraps of the life she torched, while she watches every friend, every family member, every opportunity wither under the stink of her own lies, I live. I breathe. I rise. Not healed. Not forgiven. Stronger. Sharper. And absolutely fucking untouchable.